Hi, welcome to the best panel at Siege this year. And it's not because I'm moderating it. In fact, for a change, Joe's going to shut up most of the time and just let the pros give you the straight scoop. I'm going to just read from my phone because I thought this was at 2:30 and I was going to make index cards, but hey, I'm winging it. So here we go. Please, briefly, please introduce yourselves and tell us all why your advice might be worth listening to.
Hey everybody, my name is Matt Woomer. I am the director of Blue Mammoth Games. We're a game studio up in Alpharetta, and we are now part of Ubisoft as of March of this year, and we've been around since 2009. And we make Brawlhalla, which I'm always basically representing because mostly I only have Brawlhalla t-shirts at this point.
I'm Laura Taylor. I own Sound by Laura LLC. I do music and sound design for various video games, including Brawlhalla. And mostly I work on video slot machines, but I have been doing this for 27 years in a variety of cities and different types of audio. And so hopefully I can share some tips with you about having a long career.
Hi, my name is Paul Jenkins. I have done everything. I've written a lot of comics, so I did the origin of Wolverine. I wrote Spider-Man for 6 years. I was the original. I've been a writer or narrative director on 7 or 8 platinum-selling games like God of War, Twisted Metal Black, Hulk, Destruction. So I do television, film, animation, you name it. Can't make my mind up what I want to be when I grow up.
Hey everybody, I'm a little bit of a different breed. I'm the Director of Media Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Georgia State University's Media, what did I say? Creative Media Industries Institute. Sorry, I don't know why it's been blockchain week, so I'm like totally wiped. So I have been worked in, made my own films. I'm able to be a little bit more experimental because I do have a university behind me, but I also teach people how to get started, whether it's in creative works or businesses, and yeah, that's what I do.
My name is Dov Jacobson. I have a studio called Games That Work here in Atlanta, but I've been in the video game business since 1979. Been everything from guy who sleeps on the couch to studio head who also sleeps on the couch. For other companies, for maybe out of all those years, I've been an employee 6 or 7 years, and the rest of the time a very reluctant entrepreneur.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go the other way on this question, and it's a two-part question. Most of you are personal heroes of mine because of what you've accomplished, and I'm a little intimidated, and that's definitely true. This is I wrote it, so. When I was 20-ish, like most of our audiences, I was fairly clueless as to how to become a grown-up and be successful. So I have a two-part question. A, were you always as motivated and focused as you are now, or was there a time you felt clueless too? And I do realize there's a presumption in that question, and you guys can address that if you want. And part B is, what is the number one factor or change in your attitude that puts you on the road to success? And we'll start with Dov on this one.
I love to work. I love work. I really don't understand why how they can stand to take a full month vacation. But I would, if I had a vacation, and occasionally do, I would work. I'd find another job to do during that vacation. And this is the work I love the most, but I like digging holes too. But yeah, it's just lots of time in a day, and if you apply almost every bit of it, that should be at sleep or eating or being social or personal hygiene. If you put all that time into what you love, you'll eventually get pretty good at it.
So I still feel clueless, but I think getting comfortable with that is one of the the things that I had to learn, learning to try things. I think that one of the things that I did inadvertently was learn some really hard skills, which was learning to program. So that was learning real skills that you can actually stand behind is really important, I think. But I also think be really careful what you become good at, because that will define you. So if you start running events and then that's all you do, and that was not what you planned on doing, then, be very careful about that. So I forget what the question was.
What was the second part?
Okay.
What was part two?
Part two.
I think it's time
What's
for...
the number one factor that, or change in your attitude that started you on the
Well,
road?
I just wanted to follow suit on that work. It's all work. I mean, but learning to like it and curiosity. Yeah.
You're going to hear the same thing from everybody, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
everyone sort of says, "Oh, you're talented." I'm like, that makes you think that I type and I watch the NFL, right? That's not what it's like. I'm awake at 4 o'clock in the morning every night, and so if you can't do that and you can't walk in my shoes, don't complain about not getting that far. I don't have a fair story. I guess I should ask this. I don't very often do shows of hands, but this might put it in perspective. Is anyone here 21 or around the age of 21 or less? Just show me who is. Whoa. All right. So when I was 20 years old, I came to this country. I met a couple of guys who had a black and white comic book. They asked me to come in and work with them. I became their second, technically third employee. It was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and within 2 years, I was the director of their publishing company. So I didn't break in a way where I sort of pounded the streets and a lot of things. I happened to have an opportunity and it hit the ground running. So by the time I was your age, I was running the license of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I can't speak to it. It's not fair.
That's okay, and hope that didn't depress you all.
No, but what I would say is, given that really difficult situation, you are either going to sink or you're going to swim. And I had a lot of confidence, and so I managed to swim through it. I learned the job, I made it work, I did the best I could, and then I broke into the business in the way that you can't break in. I went to San Diego Comic-Con and I met the publisher of Hellblazer, and I said, "Can I write your book?" And they said, "What have you written?" I said, "Never written anything in my life." And they gave me the job 6 weeks later because they read my script. So I have this crazy contradictory thing. But what I would say that always fits is that no one I know works as hard as I do, I don't think. And I'm sure the people on the panel do. But I'm saying that I know how much I work. I wake up and I work and I go to bed having worked every day of the week. That's the one factor I think you'll find from everybody.
I'm clueless all the time, as early as this morning, very clueless, and right before my talk. I gave a talk earlier today that would cover a lot of the things that I would say here, but how did I stop being clueless and find something to do? Well, I tried on different things. Like, you go to the store and you try on clothes and this shirt and that shirt. I'm like, okay, well, what I really want to do is be a rock star, and be up on stage and stuff like that. Chances of that happening were pretty slim. I don't sing, so that knocks me out right there, an average guitar player. And my parents always harped on me, you need to have a backup, because they didn't think I could be a rock star. So, all right, well, I know I want to be in the music industry. What can I do? I could be a lawyer. I could be a promoter. I could be a producer. And then one day, I won't tell the entire story. You have to go watch my talk. I discovered how to edit sound. And that was it. It lit me up inside. And that was the thing that fit me the best. And everything that I have done since then has been some variation of editing sound, manipulating songs, doing something with my voice. And that has carried me through. And what's the second part of the question?
Yeah.
Seriously.
What is the number one factor that changed you from being clueless attitude to that finally put you on the road?
Oh, gosh. The one thing, getting a job?
Finding your passion.
Which was
just the answer.
Well, yeah, but did that get me on the road? Yeah, I guess it did. But really getting that first job, which was making radio commercials, which was not what I thought I would do. I thought I would go make hit records, and get gold records and Grammys, on my mantle. And ended up making radio commercials, and it was an excellent environment. And it has taught me so many things that have carried me through my career. And I think that was my mother, when my mother first met the people who hired me, they're like, she said, I'm so glad she finally has someone who understands what she's talking about. So being in an environment with people that knew what I was talking about probably was like, okay, I belong here and I can do this. And that waxes and wanes. I don't always feel like I belong in video games. I make slot machines. Are they really video games? Well, I've made about 115 of them, so I'm thinking yes, but it took me to that 100 point before I really started to believe, oh, I really do make games. So.
No, this is a really good question because it is surprising to me how often I get people who come up who are 21 or 22 and they're panicking because they don't know what they want to do with their lives yet and they feel like they're running out of time, and it feels from my perspective insane to be thinking that, but it's surprising how often it's true. So in my case, take heart. I graduated from, I didn't graduate from college with a history degree. It took me a couple years extra to get a degree in history, and I didn't really know why I had a degree in history, except I liked the history courses the most, and it was all sort of aimless and directionless. And then I got married, and then I was mowing lawns, and I was married, and the key point that turned it around was I decided to go back to graduate school, and when you go back to graduate school, they don't pay for it. You have to pay for it yourself, and so you sit in a class and you think to yourself, I am right now paying $130 for this hour. And so when the professor doesn't assign enough homework, you get angry. And when, it all just sort of reverses. I remember that as being sort of a seminal moment, but don't panic. That doesn't have to happen right away. You can definitely be drifting along. So went back for computer science. Then, yeah, that was definitely a change. Was going to do business databases. In fact, did it for a while, and it was a lot of fun. Got a job in California working on a massively multiplayer online role-playing game back in the day called City of Heroes, and it was kind of like if we played World of Warcraft. Imagine that with superheroes, and that did pretty well. And then that kind of got my career going back in 2000. But don't panic. That's my message.
For this next question, Paul, feel free to just skip it.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna start with you and work down, so you can just go skip past, and you'll understand in a second why. Were you ever affected by imposter syndrome or other forms of self-doubt, and what did you do about it? And the part B to that is, did you handle analysis paralysis and/or procrastination in general? So you
want me to start?
You feel free to skip, because I have a feeling it's like
No, I never. No.
it doesn't happen to you.
Go and explain.
Sure. So imposter syndrome is just thinking you suck. I mean, in a sense, or that it's the worst case is somebody says, "Wow, that's really gorgeous art you just did," and you just don't believe it. You think you're faking it. You think you're different than the people that are really good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So I know I have one of my former students in here who's heard this before. Confidence is exactly equal to accomplishment. Exactly.
Equal to what?
Is exactly equal to accomplishment.
Oh.
So if you are confident, you will be able to use that to accomplish more. And I mean that in a very specific way. And forgive me, mate, you've heard this. I've got the shittiest analogy for it. Golf. Bear with me. If you give someone a golf club and you videotape them and you say to them, smack that ball over there, and you put them in the middle of a field, they swing it, they're a halfway decent golfer, they hit the ball over there. But now you put a flag and a pond in front of them and say, go do that again, and now they're worried, and they physically try to hit the golf ball differently because their lack of confidence takes away their ability to do it. So I just happen to know that if you are confident, you will always accomplish. And I certainly came in with confidence. I've never tried to be an arrogant person in any way. I meet everybody at eye level, but I am very confident that I can do something. If you tell me I can't do it, that's when I'm Marty McFly from, and I'm like, I turn around and say, you know what that means? You can't do it. If you tell me I can't do it, it means you can't do it. But I can do it, and so can anybody. You just have to be confident.
imposter syndrome for me is like, if somebody says you're an artist and you're like, no, I'm not an artist. So I teach a lot, and that's, fraught with imposter syndrome because you're thinking that you're teaching somebody and you don't know what the hell you're doing. So, but how do you get over that? One of the things that I think is really helpful is, first of all, break things that you need to do down in steps so that you'd make little tiny baby steps towards the big goal, and you have a path. So all you're doing is just like step 1, step 2, step 3. That's a really good thing. I also think visualization. So if you're nervous about presenting or a gallery show or an interview, visualize yourself there and really put yourself there and kind of go through that mental state. And that's a way to practice being in places that or in situations that you're not accustomed to. So those are strategies that I like to use, and I still use them all the time. And I get scared about all kinds of stuff all the time, and so there's that.
Yeah, I guess the imposter syndrome is when you feel that you're representing yourself as having skills that you have yet to acquire, which is the state I always want to be in. I always want to be ambitious and setting not just a challenge for myself to live up to what I've claimed I can do. Just like I hate to climb into water like a little bit at a time. It's really, where you have to walk out into the water and it just gets cold all the way up, and just jump off the edge, and commit. And then that's sort of what I feel about, taking responsibility. Okay, I'll take responsibility. I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to not fake it till I make it. I'm going to make it as fast as I can. But I might accept the responsibility before I know how I'm going to do it.
So when I moved out to California and got the job at Cryptic Studios, it seemed vaguely ridiculous at all times that anyone had hired me to do really anything, especially anything that they needed to rely on programming-wise. And from there, I've always had imposter syndrome. The next job I was hired by a man in this room, Todd. It seemed vaguely ridiculous to me that anyone would move me across the country to do a job. Then when I left and I worked at CCP down here for a little bit, and I was the animation expert, which was funny to me that anyone had hired me to be an expert in anything. And then again, when we started Blue Mammoth Games, and of course that was just me, so it didn't seem as ridiculous. But then that went well, and yes, it's entirely true. At all points in my life, it's always seemed vaguely ridiculous that anyone was trusting me with anything. So don't worry about that part.
Every day. Last night, anxiety dreams about coming here. This is the first time I've ever presented. Imposter syndrome is part of my process. I'll start a piece of music. All right, gotta write this piece of music. Here we go, I'm gonna start. All right, that's going. This is terrible. I'm terrible. How did I get this job? Why would anybody hire me? And then I keep going, all right, it's getting a little better. Well, all right, now we're getting somewhere. Oh, you know what? This is pretty darn good. That is every single time. So how do I get by? How do I get through that? I remember that it's just part of my process, that I'm going to hit that block every single time. And I've always gotten around it. Do I absolutely love every single piece of music that I've written? No. Do my clients love every single piece of music I write for them? Yes, because if they don't, I'll keep doing it until they are in love with it. But every single time, it is part of my everyday. It is part of every piece of music that I do.
One tactic I have is to think, what would somebody who was good at this do? And then I kind of think through it.
And just one thing I want to add, right? Like, I would never think, if you think you've arrived creatively, if you think you know everything creatively, you're correct. That's as far as you're ever going to go. So that's why these people here are all saying, yeah, no, I strive for more. I do every day, right? Just depends on the way that you do it.
One of the few things I'm going to interject is I know in my career. Is this on? Is this okay? Programming-wise, I believe it's a true statement that I've never been hired for a job that I was qualified to do. Didn't mean I didn't do the job once I was hired, but I definitely, at the point of hire, was not qualified for that job. So, okay, on to the next one. Oh, and except some of you hit upon the how do you break through analysis paralysis, procrastination. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Any specific technique? Like I have one small one, which is just make a list, take the smallest thing on that list, and just do that.
Yeah, like knocking ducks off in a row. What I would say is, whatever it is, if you want to break through procrastination and the inability or writer's block, whatever you want to call it, just do something. Like, I write screenplays a lot, and the first draft of that screenplay is what we call the vomit draft. I don't want it to exist. I hate it. I finally got it to, because when you do go through that horrible process, only then does your work begin. So if you've got any kind of writer's block or creator's block, work anyway, do a thing. And it doesn't matter, and it may be torturous and horrible, but do not create something.
I call that constructive procrastination is actually my name for it, because it's like, okay, I've got a thing and I've got to do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to procrastinate on this. Well, I know I'm procrastinating, so I'm only allowed to procrastinate in other things that I kind of have to do.
Let's be clear.
I can't procrastinate by watching TV. I only can procrastinate by doing something else that's less important.
Let's be clear about one thing, right? And this is only fair based on what you said. Let's be clear about one thing. If you're playing video games as research tonight, right? Bullshit. You're playing video games. Because my wife catches me doing it all the time. I'm
Research.
Yes, Netflix is not research either. So, anything else? Did you have something, Dov? Or
Well, deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can do whatever you want as long as you want until that deadline's a few hours away, a few days away, whatever it is. As long as the deadline's there, procrastinating is self-limiting.
I'm going to just add one thing, which is when I was you all's age, I was very free-flowing, and when my muse hit and all that sort of thing. And people who like work on schedules are lame. Schedules are amazing. Like if you just say from 7 to 8 in the morning, I'm going to write, even if it's crap. But setting like a special time that you're going to do something, even when you don't feel like it, because the muse isn't there or whatever. To me, that's been really helpful and flat out necessary as I get older. So, yeah.
Well, I don't work with, we're talking about deadlines, we're whispering about deadlines. I don't really have a lot of very tight deadlines with slot machines. And even if, I just finished up some changes for a game that they started 2 years ago. They just decided to add some new bonus games to it. And here, write some music for it. All right. Completely out of the blue. And I'm not kidding. I didn't do a whole lot of work for the last couple of months. I just barely got by. And then now all of a sudden I'm writing a presentation for Siege and I'm doing new bonuses. And then on Wednesday, like, hey, we have a 5-game package for you. Would you like that? Yeah, I'll do that, but I can't get started on it until after this because I'm going out of town. And oh, by the way, I'm going out of town, so now I got to bank all these radio shows that I work on because I'm not going to be home to record them. Where was all of this stuff over the last 2 months? Now it's all crammed into 1 week. So fear is a good motivator. And to remember, I was leaving the house with Thursday to go to the gym, and I don't like getting my hair cut. It's just such a waste of time. And so I'm like, Laura, go get your hair cut because something is going to happen tomorrow, Friday, and Siege is on Saturday. And something did happen yesterday, and I wouldn't have been able to get it done. So, fear of not having that time the very next day and running out of time is a good motivator as well.
Okay, so again, I want to apologize. These are not aimed specifically at Paul, but I have a feeling Paul will have a unique answer for this one too. Chance favors those who persist. Most success is at best a very windy road. What are your thoughts on how much hard work versus luck affected your career?
And we can go with
I'll go.
the girls first.
The women?
The women.
The women. Thank you.
He's letting me.
That's a different panel.
I'm 61.
Now I've forgotten the question. Oh, luck. Okay, luck versus hard work. Here's luck. Luck. I was born white. I was born to a well-off family that always had my back no matter what. So as my income ebbed and flowed, I always had the ability to fall back on that. That's luck. I didn't do anything to earn that. Everything else was hard work. From the day when I was in college, spending my Saturday nights in the recording studio, went to college in New Orleans. I did not go out and party like my friends. I worked. That's what I enjoy doing. Up until today, it's hard work. Luck had nothing to do with it. Luck just got me a head start in the race. That's privilege. Everything else was hard work.
Yeah, I think that recognizing what your privilege and what your luck is and gratitude will really help in recognizing that, because I think luck is kind of a perspective, because some people think they're lucky and some people think that, they have terrible luck. And besides, what you're born to and what you're given, it's really sort of how you handle the situations. So I think that luck can be a perspective, but gratitude really helps you sort of recognize all of the things that you do have as opposed to all the things that you don't have, or all the obstacles that you have overcome as opposed to all the obstacles that you have to overcome. But I do think, sometimes there are lucky things happen, and, celebrate them, and really, I think celebrating things is really an important thing too. So this is what I have to say.
I want to add one thing.
There's another expression other than chance favors those who persist. It's luck is the residue of hard work. And I do agree with your point, number one. And that's sort of a separate question. The luck I meant was more, to me, it's an argument for why you should work hard so that when the 1 out of 10 opportunities finally shows up in front of you, you're ready to take the leap. So, and again, I apologize for the girls' remarks.
Do you guys want to go? My answer's going to be crazy. Go ahead. Good.
I think I've screwed up my luck. And I think that I've had lucky chances that at the time I didn't recognize and made stupid choices. I got a phone call. Would I like to come work on this movie that they're doing up in Industrial Light and Magic, which I never heard, which I heard of, but no one else had at that point. It's just some little stupid company. You want to come be an animator on this movie, Star Wars? I said, I really have my commitment to my job, which wasn't even a real job. It was shaping up to move furniture, which I somehow thought was a more important commitment. So I had luck. I just didn't know it.
But it was of the bad kind.
Can we cue Kenny Rogers? If it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all.
The luck was good. It was my stupidity.
Okay, Paul,
I was going to let everyone go first. Mine's mental.
All right, we'll get right to the middle one. Everything everyone has said here is true. Unfortunately, you have picked an industry where luck is going to matter a lot. And so it's going to matter that, the Joe is like, you got to persist, you got to be patient, you got to do stuff. I've had seriously had friends who have worked in the industry for 10 years and through weird bad luck never shipped a game. These are people, they work on something and the company closes before the game ships, or they work on something and they bounce back and forth, or they work on a game that for no fault of their own doesn't do anything, and they work on studios that close, and studios open and studios close. And so, there's a separate lecture about protecting yourself, but probably more than being a dentist, although I don't know a lot about dentistry, so that's probably a bad choice. There will be a lot of luck in your career. That you get to work on the right game, you get to work with the right people, you get the opportunity to go work on Star Wars, Star Wars, the video game, I guess. So that's a definite thing that you will experience is thinking to yourself, well, this really, really was a moment of bad luck, and it's just about persistence.
Well, my answer is going to be the complete opposite of what you thought it was going to be. Because, I got lucky because I met two guys that created the Ninja Turtles, and I did that. So I've just started writing about this. It's not something anybody knows. Most people know me for one thing. They know me for having success in this country. They know me as someone who did The Origin of Wolverine. They did God of War. Any number of very successful projects. Wrote 6 years of Spider-Man. But what no one knows about me is that when I was 5 years old, my dad left. My mum has mental health issues. My brother had issues, and I come from a family of gypsies, come from a family of pikeys. We lived in a caravan with no electricity. I know exactly what it feels like to look out the window and wonder how I'm going to eat. We went through a lot of physical stuff, and that was really, really hard. And I'm telling you right now that that's very hard for me to say, by the way, because it's all new for me. No one knows that of me. No one knows. They're about to find out because I'm about to do a TV show about it. But I found and made my luck. It didn't happen to me. So if you want to go do it, don't think that luck shows up. Luck shows up because, do you think there's any mystery why I'm 3,000 miles away from my family? Because when I was 7 or 8 years old, I walked out the door, went up to a barley field, laid in the field, and said, I'm not going to be like them. I made my own luck. I worked hard. I constantly played sports. I learned as much as I could, and I did all of those things by myself. And then I got on a plane and I came to America by myself, and I never went back. So it's the opposite of what you thought it was going to be. Oh, I got lucky. It was actually that I made my own luck, and I made my own luck from the age of 7 years old. So go do that.
It was a mix, and thank you very much for sharing that.
That's right. Everyone's about to know anyway.
Am I on? Okay. Okay, now for the $1 million question. Multi-million, actually, because the game industry has, costs more now to make a AAA answer. So, if yourself at age 20, sorry. Damn you, spell check. Sorry. If yourself from when you were 20 to 24-ish was transported from the past to today and had to survive in today's world, what is the one piece of advice you would give to this other self to help them be successful today? And we're gonna start with the men the little boys this time. So go ahead, Matt.
All right, wait. So I'm 24 now. Wait.
No. So you're also okay.
I'm
You just
kidding.
yanking my chain. Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm stalling for time.
Yeah.
No, that's a great question. So what has changed in the last 20 years is the question that they need that's different.
What might still apply? What might? It's really open-ended.
Okay, well, I'll tell you.
You've just got more skin in the game because it's you.
Here's a good thing that I've learned in the time. You'll be in the industry for a long time. You will meet lots of people, and who you work with is the number one most important thing.
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
good. I'm glad I got it because I was a little intimidated by the previous answer.
You get rich for that.
I was like, okay, there we go. Thank you. I was like, anyway, it's been astonishing to me to kind of look back as I kind of get to I was thinking I was kind of getting close to the 20-year mark here in the games industry, being like, first of all, I know a lot of the same people. A lot of the people who, when I came in, I thought, oh, I need to be friends with the boss. I need to be friends with, I wasn't thinking that too much. I wasn't really thinking anything. But it's the people around you. It's the people on the desk next to you. They're the ones who you're going to want to know in 5 years and in 10 years, and you want to still be friends with, and they're going to get you your next job. You're going to get them jobs. You're going to collaborate together. You're going to later on be like, hey, let's start a studio. Let's do something. Oh, I know who's good. Oh my gosh, look how much better that person got. And just how much the industry is about people as a topic, and how much it's a lot of the same people. It's a smaller industry than you think. It's, if you get to, don't burn bridges, don't do any of those things. And I think all of that pretty much would continue to apply today until we're all replaced by robots.
Yeah, I think just to expand on that, the work advice is the same as life advice, right? Stay off social media and don't get pissed off at politics because it's stupid. To be like me, be a punk, stay outside it and don't bother with it because it's a load of crap. be kind to each other. I just worked on a project, and we came in and we were doing the project and the team. I have a good friend who is this guy Dick Cook, who used to be a chairman of Disney, and he and I play golf occasionally. And the first thing he said to me after having made 65 films that grossed over $100 million, he said, it's all about people. So when I was working on this project recently, we wrote all the things we wanted to do. What kind of games are going to be? Is it going to be reactive or proactive? All these games, and we had like 70 odd points, and I asked everyone in the team, pick the one that you like the best, and everyone did, and I picked the one that I like the best, which is we will love and trust and support each other, and we're not going to go over the water cooler and have a discussion about someone else, okay? If you get into that feeling and environment and you start being supportive of people and you learn what their mistakes are and you trust you and own your own mistakes, that's when things actually make you more productive, more capable, you learn more. So I would encourage everybody to be a good dude or dudette, sorry. Good person, okay?
Yeah, I guess I would give myself the advice to calm down a little bit. And I guess when I was that age, I thought the path to success involved a lot of independence, and that I would be like, I'd have to lead a group in order to achieve what I was capable of. And I found, in retrospect, it's kind of the opposite. You can work for a crappy company that'll beat you down, but I've worked for a number of good companies, and they only wanted me to do what I was uniquely capable of doing, the things that I was especially good at, the things that I loved. Where, if in another organization, if you have a lot of responsibilities, some of which are things that picking out health insurance, that's not a fun thing to do. Mm-hmm. Helping design a character, or helping a creative person come up with, achieve what they can do, and that's your role. That's a great thing to do. If and a good organization working for good people, that's all they want from you. They just want the things you're good at. So don't be afraid. Don't think that being on your own is going to be where you're going to learn the most or you're going to grow the most. It's not necessarily true.
So I would tell myself, be authentic and be who you are. Don't be worried about who you are, and actually embrace that, I think, is really important. The sooner you can be really comfortable with yourself and be honest with people, the better that's going to be. I think, to Dove's point, learn to listen. I think that everybody could learn to listen more, even all the way up to 80 years old. But I think learning to listen is a really important part, and it's hard to do when you're young and either too worried about yourself or too confident about yourself, then you forget to listen to people. So that's an important thing. And just to Matt's point, that the first job I got after I got my computer science degree was for a company called, I shouldn't call them out, although I don't mind, called Peach Web, and it was so many bros, and I know that that's not the topic here, but and all the servers were named after strip clubs, and it was totally uncomfortable for me. And then I got a job at MindSpring with Charles Brewer, who says, know what, who you work with. I still know those people. It was a great leadership team. I learned so much about management and company values, and I still have all those friends, and that they're all in the industry. And look around in your environment and be like, know when you're better than something too. So that's.
Mine is a two-parter. My first advice is protect your hearing, because once it's gone, it's gone. You don't get it back. So if I could go back to when I was 14 and my parents would say, "Turn down your Walkman, Laura," I would. Now I go to sleep to the dulcet sounds of the wind and the trees and the trains far away and my tinnitus, and it doesn't go away. Luckily, I started wearing earplugs about 25 years ago, and my actual hearing is pretty good, but take care of your hearing, because once it's gone, it's gone. And foam earplugs are super cheap. Keep an open mind. As I said, when I was in school, I thought I was going to hit records. Now I make slot machines that you can play on your cell phone. When I was in college, there were no cell phones. So that's quite a journey. Whatever your talent is, whatever your skill is, there are myriad ways that you can use them and make money doing them and build a career using those skills. So keep an open mind and look for those opportunities in non-traditional ways and jobs and industries that you're not thinking about now. They exist.
Great. So I had one final question, but basically it was sort of a repeat of the one you just answered, and everybody really hit on what I was asking. So we're going to open it up for questions. Go ahead.
If you were around my age, would you hire like if yourself were to come into your office today and ask for a job, would you hire yourself? Why or why not?
Good question. Just go starting with Matt on down. Or actually, anybody can. Let's do that. We don't need everybody to answer. Who feels like?
Well, I think if you met yourself, you would hate yourself.
Yeah, I was kind of a snotty prick at that age.
I think I would hire myself because I aimed to please, like really hardcore, maybe to a detriment. So yeah, I would hire me, but I would also remember to quit the job at some certain point in time too. So there's that.
I think I would hire me because I was pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't hire me. I'd hire me and I'd say, if you mess up in these 3 areas, which you probably will, I can't keep you on for long, right?
Yeah.
So I would teach myself a few lessons that I needed.
Very good. Very good.
You know, I asked my first boss, Jeffrey, why he hired me of all the people that he interviewed, and he said it was because they asked me a question about multi-track recording, and I got it right. And I also had the music minor, and so making commercials at that time took a certain amount of rhythm. And so I like to think I would hire myself now because I think when I was your age, I had a pretty good basis to get into audio production, just based out of college.
Next question. Go ahead, Ben.
How do you deal with a plethora of ideas that kind of come in all the time, nonstop, and you want to pursue them, but they're also in a lot of different, sometimes complementary, sometimes conflicting avenues, like you have passion for games and then also tech and then software and then hardware and then physics, and it just like feels like a lot of fruit around you that you don't know, like you want to pick one, they all look good and they start rotting at the same time. So how do you just pick one, or can you do them all?
You can't do them all. Pick one, and if it doesn't work out, go pick another one. The other ones aren't going to go away permanently. They're always going to be there.
Yeah, I agree. They don't really rot. That's
Keep an ideas file though, right? Like write them all down and make sure you go back to them later. And if you are working on a project and you think of some other good line or idea for some other project, go to that projects folder, get the ideas file, which I keep for every folder, and write the idea in that ideas file so when you get to it later on, it's still there and you don't forget it, because that happens.
This is less a specific answer, but more a tactic for handling that problem is, particularly with game development, one problem that you will have your entire life is scope. You will have a really hard time keeping your projects in scope. And so you have this problem where you're like, oh, there's 5 things I want to do, and one of them is a VR MM recreation of Japan, or multiplayer, and then you can't even start it because it's too big. And then when you do start it, you wind up stopping. And so figuring out, being super deliberate about how it is that you're going to complete a project and to keep it from losing your ability to complete it because of scope creep. If you can do that, and just keep in mind it's basically impossible to do, so don't get too discouraged when you fail. But if you can do that, if you can get yourself to ship things, then you can start to build confidence that you're going to be able to do lots of little projects until you as you figure out what you want to do.
I'm going to give a little bit of a new agey answer to it. You can let the universe tell you. Believe it or not, as weird as that sounds, you can be aware to all these different opportunities. I have an expression called always be looking, and that's for opportunities. So if I have a list 10 deep, and I'm trying to still decide which one I do, and all of a sudden somebody shows up with number 4, Well, there's a step in the right direction, and that's easy. And I try to mitigate time, effort, lots of things. So whenever the universe wants to save me a little time, I go with it. I let two girls, the young women, write the story and story, music, and art for Clutter 6, because I got a little extra money and I met these two Type A people that just blew me away, and I went, great timing. I was so sick of doing this kind of thing, sure. And you know, there really is a lot of that out there, at least in my belief. If you don't have that belief, that's fine, but be open to that. So, next. Got you. Yep.
Trevor.
Here you go. Trevor's the thing. Here. Pass that down. If you wouldn't, then pass it back.
Thank you. Mine's going to be quick. I just wanted to say I thought it was interesting how Matt specifically talked about how he looked at all these like 20-year-olds and people, and it seemed like really crazy that they were rushing. I know that I have that feeling as well, being almost 30 now. I look back, but you probably see me in the exact same way. But I just thought this whole panel has been really great. I didn't really have a question. I just want to say thank you because it's very insightful and very honest, and it's been great. It's made me feel really good.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, how do each of you deal with burnout, or have you had burnout, and how do you recover from that? Because as 35 and getting older, it's not quite as easy to rebound.
He deserves a written record for that one, too. So that's a great question. Great.
So I can tell you mine. I mean, I got burned out with the big corporations, right? I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't want to work with Marvel or DC or Sony or Warner Brothers. I kind of do, but only under the right parameters, right? Because they tend to hand contracts that are pretty usury and enforce them in ways that are really unique. So burnout, I think what you do is, trying to work out and do some activity is not the worst thing in the world. I know it sounds crazy, but I just think it's important if you can. It takes away some of that burnout, you know, because we get stuck in this whole thing of sort of this sedentary lifestyle of writing and sitting and making and constantly doing that. So I think that's a thing that I do in the morning, and then after I'm finished with that, I got rid of burnout with that kind of creative corporation thing by rejecting them and going off and doing something else, right? I think you finish your job always. You always finish your commitment, but then find another path. And one thing that was just added to something that was said earlier on, I think what we do with like employees, for example, is really encourage them to. It's a good management thing. If they've got a job in say marketing, but they have an interest in another thing, I think it's really important to have the staff like be allowed to go into that interest and train them in that skill and let them do it. So you've got a secondary interest that drives you during the day. If you're in marketing but you're really interested in design, I want to encourage people to be in that so that we get their input and all that kind of stuff. So find a second thing to do. Don't just go on one thing.
And I haven't had that problem, but I know friends of mine have questioned the assumption that they're in the field they really want to be in and changed and been really happy about it.
And just, learn to prioritize, learn to say no. That was for me, that was something that I had to do, was learn to say no to things. Because I would be in a job to the point where I had set the expectations so high that I couldn't keep it up. And so the only way to change that would be to change jobs. But when you change the job, learn from your mistake from beforehand so that protect your life and know what your priorities are. So I think also reflect to yourself on what you prioritize. Do you prioritize money? Do you prioritize free time? Do you prioritize vacation, learning new skills? So I think there's a lot. I think a lot of us don't do enough reflection. So the idea book that also sort of has a book where you just sort of take account of yourself, your desires, all that is really helpful.
If I can add to that a little bit, I think what happens in the particular cases I'm thinking of, people over prioritize. They think a priority that they have is glamour. They want a job that's glamorous, and really, the work of programming a game and the work of programming business databases probably equally interesting at a lot of levels. And when they realize that the things they want out of life, there are things that are more important than glamour, like time with the family, job stability, things like that. they can come to terms with what they want out of life instead of feeling that they have to be in the game industry.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I just say one thing, just to add on to that? I know I've said a lot. I got to say something about that because that is super important. People that want glamour, in other words, if you think you're going to get recognition and stuff, and I'm not I'm the guy that I don't go to award ceremonies, I don't go to red carpets, and I get to go to them all the time, and I don't go. But I think when people chase other people's attention and glamour, right, the thing that they think it's going to be, that's never ever pays off, right? It never becomes the thing that you expect it to be. And what I've found is that people who are super accomplished, like actors, I know a lot of actors that have done really, really well for themselves, and most of those people are like really down to earth. They don't want that stuff. They have to do it. It's part of their job. They actually don't want it. They'd like to go down the pub and have a beer, you know, and they can't. So I would say absolutely chasing what your expectation is it's like it's a prize you can never attain. I would say, like, be more down to earth. I'm certainly, I love my wife and my children, my family, and that's a massive thing that I go for, and I don't particularly care about the rest of that stuff.
One of the really tough things about burnout for me, and it's something I've never really figured it out. I've never figured out quite how to deal with it. And I've never really figured out how to distinguish burnout from fear of completing something, fear of taking something through to the it's like, you're like, oh, I'm burned out on this. Am I burned out on this, or am I scared of it? Am I, so I don't necessarily know the answer to that, but I've definitely experienced. So my only answer is get enough sleep.
Yeah. So I have two other types of burnouts that aren't the fear-based. I got burnt out by having producer types wanting me to make that a little bluer, and telling me what to do, and that I wasn't really the artist or the creator. I just hated that. So that's why I ended up going indie. Now, once I go indie, there's a second kind of burnout, which is, I can't believe I'm still doing clutter 8 years later. But I've always, at my worst point of burnout, it's like, what am I going to do? What can I do that's different? I will say my 8 games are in fact different, which has kept me alive and kept me sane. Do something different. It's the insanity thing, right? The burnout comes from doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you're trapped, in my mind. So go ahead.
Oh, I got another thing, because I just thought of it. Because it's not about slightly reversing it with, another thing is, don't be afraid, if you have a job, don't be afraid to ask your boss to change what you do. That's something that I have noticed being on the other side of it, where I realize that when I am in a situation where I'm managing people, if someone seems happy and is doing a really great job at their job, I'm done. It's like this whole let's have our performance reviews and discussions and stuff like that. It's like, yes, I should do more of it than we do, but your boss, if you're happy and you're kicking ass, your boss assumes that you're happy and everything's great. And if someone comes and says, I want to change what I'm doing, I need to do something different, they'll listen, or they should.
I have a thing.
Closing words to everybody. We're getting close to the end, so whatever you want to say at last, go for it.
Be mindful of your work-life balance. You don't have to work all the time if you don't want to. I don't work 40 hours a week. It's one of the perks of being self-employed. I get to set my own hours, and I prioritize things that are important to me, so I make sure that I get my time at the gym. Can't stress that enough, that physical activity is important. Get those endorphins going, get your dopamines. But you deserve all of you deserve a good work-life balance. And that's it, and you deserve it. So keep that in mind, and when you start getting burnt out, look for places to add some more life back into your work.
Any last words? Anybody?
Protect your hearing.
Protect your hearing.
Paul?
I got a lot. Just come see me afterwards. Say mine.
Thank you. Really awesome. Thanks. And thank you guys. Being a good audience. Thanks. And really, really. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
now. Thank you.